time to take a look at the causes of what seems like an already chaotic 2021 NFL offseason. So we're going to do a draft on the causes, and Quentin's going to head up first. So you're on the clock.
All right, I know this is maybe a little bit off kilter, but I'm directing it towards the media and sports media in general. Maybe not necessarily in the traditional sources, not through just watching ESPN 24/7, but more through kind of viewing news through Twitter and seeing live updates. And what I think that's done, it just kind of invigorated the fan bases a little bit. So like that's my number one. I do think what has kind of changed the landscape really is just the immediacy of the sports media in free agency.
Yeah, I think that really does make even GMs and the way that people even run teams, they know how it's consumed all the time, and that it's equally, I've said this for years, is equally as important to be as popular in the off season than it is during the regular season. In fact, it's actually potentially even better to be worse in the off season because you spend more time in the off season talking about the first overall draft pick. No one really talks about being ninth unless you're trading. And so to that effect, I would say to me, it's a new competitive environment because there's a stake change, because the salary cap has changed. Those who see themselves as being the smartest people in the room are going to try and take advantage of players and teams not being able to utilize how much or utilize their cap the best way to add value to players correctly. And with that, like the obvious part of that is like Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson being shipped, like, or not shipped, but being on the trade block. You don't see that ever. So that is really a sign of the times, at least to me.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying the kind of the new age GM that's willing to wheel and deal. I don't know if that's because they grew up potentially playing like fantasy football and they know that all it's about is getting the players, but I appreciate it. I like seeing now that everything's up for discussion now, that there is no more like, oh yeah, we don't take any calls for that player at all. Like everything is up for debate, everything's up for discussion. If we really think that getting rid of player X is going to benefit us in the future, yeah, we're going to go for it. So I really like that, to the kind of the point of teams being kind of smart with their money. Kind of in like a sicko way, I'm really enjoying seeing teams kind of figure things out when the salary cap dropped, because they were expecting to go up 20-30 million.
It was linear. It looked linear when
like
you
the
look
way
at the
teams
graph.
look at it, they don't look at it like, oh, we need to make sure we're at the salary cap for this year. Like they're projecting the salary cap to go up and seeing it dip. So it's like a whatever, like a $40 million dip. Like seeing teams figure out how they're going to make it work, and I believe every team has been astounding. And the way that teams are now like manipulating player salaries, like the players they still get all the money. Like there's nothing, I don't really get worried about salary cap manipulation, because essentially what it does is guarantee players money. Like the player does them a favor and therefore they get the money eventually. It's not going away. So I'm just saying, like, I really enjoy,
especially this year, knowing that, because it's probably really the first year I've been really paying attention to this, but you see a lot more restructuring of contracts, and it makes a lot more sense because, like, I guess in a general, like in a situation where you didn't have a massive drop in projected cap, that by moving it on further, you're obviously less hit at the cap, because the cap in 2022 might be extremely interesting because it's going to be massive. It'll be like a 40 to 50 to even $60 million spike. Therefore, by pushing it on further and restructuring your contract, you can actually potentially make more money in that sense, because you'll have maybe a bit more bargaining power. It would be kind of interesting. And there's another advantage here, knowing that players are more likely to take that 1-year deal. So it is a new competitive environment to me, I would say. And also, yes, the rise of new media, all that type of stuff as well. Do you have any other points on that?
Yeah, just in general, I'm just enjoying seeing teams. Like what I'm trying to say is, like what is this going to look like next year? Like, is there going to be lessons that GMs and teams learn after the 2021 season? There could be examples of, like, say, like receivers, right? Like maybe a Corey Davis, who you could have, the Jets signed for a lesser contract than they would have for like a Kenny Galladay or a Kendrick Bourne for the Patriots. Like, are those the players that actually have really good seasons? And what they might do is allow teams to look at it a little bit more tactfully next year when they're looking at free agency. And they'll be like, well, yeah, maybe we don't need that big splash, because you always see at free agency, there's always, I mean, this is the only year where it hasn't. You always see that first day of like, holy shit, somebody just got
Yeah,
really paid. The only person who really got paid right is Trent Williams,
exactly.
and and that's in my opinion, that's a sign of the times where teams are like, yeah, that's the best left tackle in football. Like, he's gonna get the most money in free agency. I think that's really interesting, and I'm just intrigued to see next year, this time next year, if teams are like a little bit more hesitant to take a little bit more risk on a player that they don't know much about, because oftentimes in free agency, there's a reason why the other team didn't re-sign them. What is it? So I just think it's gonna be interesting.
It's also fine, very interesting. Also, with the way the NFL also kind of really they took stock in their how popular the NBA was as far as the free agency was concerned, the off season when that the clock strikes 9 or something. I guess what was that? Wherever Magic Johnson showed up to LeBron's house, um, they're realizing that this is just another great opportunity to stay in the media. But at the same time, it's not the same as far as player mobility is concerned. It still retains that conservative structure that isn't the same with the NBA. The NBA's player movement and mobility within the offseason is definitely more player driven. This is still conservative, business driven, less
Business, yeah.
player mobility is what I'm seeing here. So it's kind of just a different context. It is kind of interesting to look at it from that perspective, that like it's not like, oh, Kenny Galladay is like, I don't want to be with the Lions anymore, therefore I will seek free agency. Like, that's just not what happened here. We have a lot of guys who are disgruntled, I think. And it's not quite like the NBA. But however, they put themselves into a situation where they can be just as popular as the NBA in the offseason.
Yeah, and I think they have more. I mean, the NBA, it's hard to compare the two. What I like about the NFL is you definitely do have like a juxtaposition between, you have people that really are cheering for the players to get the money, right?
Yeah.
That's most people. I think, we both fall in that category. Although, at times I think it's necessary to throw a little bit of skepticism in there, because you don't have to agree with everything. But if you want to be super pro player and celebrate every single time this player gets this huge contract and gets a lot of guaranteed money, that the NFL is there for that. There's a lot of people that benefit like that. There's a lot of people that are there's a lot of rags to riches stories. Like, there's a lot of things where you can cheer for that player. But to the other effect of people that maybe potentially have more conservative values, maybe look at it from more of a business perspective, I think you get a lot of joy from watching teams and management really figure out, okay, here are assets here, and oh, we don't have a spot to fill there, and have them kind of figure it out. I think that's the most enjoyable part. So you have two different sets of fans. Like, there's one that really cares about the player, but there's another one who just like loves watching GMs operate, and then having that media and having it on Twitter and seeing all these contracts come up live, having people actually analyze the contracts so you know what the teams are actually giving the
Yes, I
players,
agree. It's
instead of
very
it being like, oh my god, like, remember when Taysom Hill, they gave him the 4 million or 4 year, 140 million
40.
contract?
Yeah.
Like, there was people initially like, oh my god, I can't believe they did that. But like, again, you could find in 2 seconds somebody who actually understands all these things. Like, yeah, this actually means the Saints are going to save $7 million in the salary cap this year, and he's never going to make a single dime of that money.
And I
So
wouldn't
it's just
also
interesting.
just to clarify, I wouldn't I wouldn't assign certain politics to other side. That doesn't
No,
necessarily
yeah,
have to be true.
yeah, that's
But
true.
it does make sense because you could be just as there's also as equal the drive towards data analysis. It's like there's really no way you can equate the two. Like, there's the scouting side, there's the data analysis side, and like it's such an easier way to put it all together, because there's no real one side's not more correct. You can experience the same things, just one way through the computer, one way through real life. There's really no difference. You can't equate the two, and we're seeing that come together on places like Twitter, sites like PFF, of course. And you have this kind of real world type of tangible ability to see what GMs are seeing, and then also they know that finally that you can see what they're seeing, and when they make stupid decisions, you see them.
Yeah, there's a higher level of accountability for GMs, I think, than ever before. And I don't want to keep harping on the media point, but you can look at shows where you can see former GMs legitimately talk about things. And to be fair, like some of them are not necessarily with the times, but you can even look at like a Daniel Jeremiah, for example, not a GM, but has a strong background in in front office operations. Lewis Riddick as well. So you actually get to hear from them, who are kind of like more the new age kind of guys, like actually talk about why they are doing something and if they approve or disapprove of X and Y. And hey, they're not always right, but they're more oftentimes right than wrong. So I just think all that together kind of collectively builds this anticipation for something, and we're always starved for NFL news. It definitely drives the ratings in the States, and I'm not sure what it is in Canada, but it really is the ratings juggernaut. I forget, I saw a stat somewhere, and it was like most NFL games or whatever it was, like had higher ratings than the Harry and Meghan Oprah what's it called interview. So well, I thought that was just like in perspective. Like I've kind of felt like the whole world kind of stopped for that thing on Sunday night, and then lo and behold, it's like, yeah, that's just whatever. That's Sunday Night Football, man. Like not even close.